Okay, welcome everyone to the Toko Portal podcast. It's me, Zero, here with.
Rye, welcome
Yeah,
to. Oh,
yeah. And this is episode 27 of the Roundtable. Just in case anybody's clicking this video thinking it's the movie, just in case this becomes long like all our other roundtables. No, this is a podcast, people. Don't fucking downvote my channel for no reason.
that
Um,
that happened.
oh god, that happens so hard on some of the ones. Like, yeah, there's two that I had to set to private because I'm like, okay, people, it's a long as podcast. I know it's like an hour and a half, but it's not the movie.
Right.
Yeah, yeah,
And it says podcast in the title, right?
yeah. I know, but like sometimes when people from different countries are searching it up, they might not notice that. So I'm like, oh, it's my fault. I should have made it more clear somehow. So that's why this time I put the thumbnail and the video picture background as the same thing because I'm like, you can't fucking mistake it this time. Anyway, yeah, right.
So,
This movie.
so I didn't watch this movie. Uh,
Oh, so you're relying on me to give you commentary?
yeah, pretty much.
Oh my
So,
god. Okay, so this is bad because I haven't watched this movie in years, and I just skimmed through it.
well, that's fine. That's fine because
Oh god.
I
No,
haven't
like,
seen Garo. Like I haven't seen any of Garo.
yeah. So
So there have been times in the past where like we had a podcast where I had to explain to you what was going on, and so I figured you could do that for me here.
yeah, that's. I was gonna do most of that anyway because this should be an introduction to people because okay, here's what I'm gonna tell you what how this is gonna go. One, this is kind of a mystery-esque movie, so I'm not gonna spoil what the hell happens. Two, a lot of it's just fight scenes. And three, some of the other scenes. So okay, here's the thing. There's 30% new shit, 30% fights, 30% exposition, basically. Right?
Okay.
So it's like I mean maybe not 30% exposition, but there's some new stuff, so there's some exposition. But the point is like most of this movie is like okay, I can't say that because spoilers, and the other stuff is like, well, you kind of have to be part of the universe to know what the fuck is going on because otherwise I'll just say it and you go there and like, what the hell? And two, as I said, I haven't really watched this movie in a while. I just re-skimmed it. But the point is, um, watch this movie anyway yourself because what this movie is after the first season of Garo finished, they didn't know if Garo could be a franchise at that point. So this movie was the test to see if Garo can be a franchise. And basically, it was meant as an introduction to people who've never seen Garo to come and see it. And basically, yeah. So what Garo is a it's a mature tokusatsu. Basically, it runs at midnight. It's not on the same channel as Super Sentai or Kamen Rider or Ultraman. Um, but basically, it's a different type of tokusatsu. It's like basically they're like demon hunters, the tokusatsu. Um, and so it's a lot more like it's sort of like maybe not as brutal as Amazon's, but it's sort of in the same range, right? It's like, yeah, this is not for kids, right? Like it's a little bit more crazy than even early Heisei tended to be. But what this movie is here, let me just give you a brief synopsis, and then I'll talk about the Garo universe and stuff like that, and then maybe
Okay.
what happens in this movie. So what this movie is like Koga, who's the main character of at least the first two seasons of Garo. Um, he's the Golden Knight, which means he's the strongest knight in the Garo universe. Kind of, it's like basically if you have the Golden Knight, Garo is the Golden Knight. Like it's like you know how in like Gavan is the suit, and he can pass it
Right.
down. Yeah, so in Garo, that's what the knights
Well,
have. It's like it's a power you can pass on to the next generation,
what
sort of.
does being a knight mean?
It basically means like you get trained to be like a monster hunter.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, so basically, well, there's two different lines. So there's the knights line who are just purely combat focused, who basically, how should I put it? Like imagine like the hunters from Supernatural, except instead of guns and other shit, they basically just use like they henshin to fight the monster. And basically that's what they do. And so the monsters in this universe are called horrors. Um, and basically what happens is they come from the Makai world. And so they come basically from the underworld. And the thing is, only a Makai knight can basically kill a horror. And well, I mean, like priests can do it too, but it's pretty tough. But basically, the thing is, you can't ever really kill a horror. What you can do is you can just take it out, and it just returns to the demon world. So they can keep coming back, and that's why there's an organization called like the Watchdogs, basically, who kind of are like the council for the Makai Knights and stuff. They kind of sort of oversee some stuff, but because horrors keep showing up over and over and over throughout history, they actually have a record. That's why in the show you're like, oh, who the hell is this? And it's like, oh, this is such and such horror. They have this type of thing. They're kind of like this sadistic asshole, or this person's into that. I mean, they don't give you that much information, but they give you like a little bit. Like this is the name. That's kind of what they're into. It's because it's like in Hibiki they have like records
Right, of
of like,
like these type of monsters grow in this environment and have this
yeah,
behavior and whatnot. So this is kind of like that, where
yeah,
it's
it's
like,
sort of. I mean, it's not as detailed because the watchdogs are a little more hands off for the most part. But yeah, it's sort of like that because they see a lot of like they oversee a lot of like knights and priests and stuff. It's like unless you call them for backup, like they're not gonna give you that much. Like they give you assignments, like hey, there's a horror, go deal with that, and the knight usually just goes and deals with it,
and
right?
but like they have
But
a general familiarity with the horrors of like, hey, there's a horror that likes to eat your brains or whatever.
yeah, sort of like that. It's basically like they have records showing like, oh yeah, this one's shown up before. This pattern corresponds to this horror type of thing. It doesn't really play into the show as much as you would think because it's not like, oh, yeah, this one's shown up before. This is its weakness. Go beat it using this. Sometimes it happens. It's very rare.
But it's
It's
more of a
because usually the Makai
there's
Knights.
there's a horror
Yeah.
that likes to target people walking by themselves kind of thing.
Uh, yeah, I think there's some like that. Uh, well, there probably is. Yeah, there's some. There's some like that. It's more like, oh, this one focuses on this style. Like the horror in this movie is like a one that attacks people from the mirrors. Like that's the thing. What happens is like in Deno, when like the monsters show up and they're like, hey, make a contract with me, and then they go back and take you over and all that.
Right.
So in this, it's sort of the same. It's like they target, like basically, horrors keep showing up over and over. It's because humanity is corrupt. Basically, like as long as people have like corruptible traits, they'll keep coming back. That's sort of the thing. Is that's why like a Makai Knights. That's what they say in the opening and stuff. Is like a Makai Knights fight's never over. It's because humanity will never be pure. So there are always going to be people who are corruptible, and therefore horrors will always keep showing back up. So that's why the fight is eternal. Um, and basically, what happens is like, oh, there's a person who's a little fucked up, and then the monsters show up and they offer them a deal. It's like, hey, you want this thing to happen? Uh, like basically become my host or whatever. I mean, they don't really say that. It's like, hey, you want your wish to come true, and the person says yes, and then they get taken over,
That sounds
sort of
like
stuff.
Deno though.
Yeah, it's a little bit like Deno.
Uh,
Um, but basically, what happens in this movie is Koga. Normally, like Makai Knights have their own region that they take care of. This time, Koga goes to a different region.
Someone else's jurisdiction, or is it
Uh,
unguarded?
yeah, this one's unguarded because you find out the Makai Knight who was there died,
Oh,
and the reason why he there's no Makai Knight there is because he didn't pass it on to anyone because he had a daughter instead of a son. And
Oh,
so one
girls
of the
can't
things,
be knights.
yeah, one of the things you kind of learn in this movie is that yeah, knights can only be guys. And going forward in the series, because you have to remember this is not only like the second piece of content after like there was season one
Yeah,
and then there
how
was this
like what year is this movie?
oh 04, oh 05, something like that.
Oh, that's a lot more recent than I would have guessed.
Yeah, it's like how should I put like so I don't know what the fuck was going or happening in 2004 or whatever, but like there was like okay, so we just had like Fies, right? And then we had like Kamen Rider the first, and then we had Ultraman the next, and then we had Garo. So like I don't know what the hell was going on, but like Tokusatsu Land was insane. Uh, in that year. So like basically this is like a year or maybe a couple months after the first season stopped. I think it's at least a year or two after the end of the first season. So maybe 2005, 2006 ish. It can't be later than that. I know that for sure. Um, but yeah, so one of the things you learn in this movie is that knights can only be guys. And like going forward in the different series and movies and stuff, you see how, or definitely miniseries, you see how that like affects stuff because this is they're like this is a bullshit rule, right? Like
Right, no one's happy with it.
yeah, no one's happy with it. I mean, and the other thing too is Makai like the armors are rare. So the thing is like there are no new armors. So you can't just build a new one because they've lost the like it's been passed down since like ancient times. They've lost the ability to do that. So like that's why it's always a problem whenever a Makai Knight dies is because there's like well shit he didn't pass it on. There's no
So,
replacement.
like, what happens to the armor?
I don't know. Like sometimes you can kind of get it, but like I think usually it just dies because like it's
Oh,
inherited. Like you have to
oh.
physically like pass it to the next person.
So
So
can they
like
not make more? Is that not
no, there's
doable?
no, there's no more new armors.
Oh God! So if they run out, there it's just done.
Yeah, I mean there's like at least at least a couple hundred. I mean maybe not hundred, but like there's definitely close to around 100-ish knights. But like the thing is they're okay. They're not like super like here's okay, how should I put it? Like imagine in Gaim,
Okay.
you have like the main riders and then you have the grunt suit riders, right?
Right.
Like the Makai Knights, most of them are like that. But they're pretty tough. They can handle monsters okay-ish. But like once like a really strong one shows up, there's like they've got no chance. Right? So like unless they get like backup or like one of the legendary like knights show up, like they're fucked.
So
Um which
Koga
is something
is like the
yeah, go ahead.
strongest amongst them.
Yeah, like the Golden Knight Garo is technically classified as the strongest. They are like stronger like villain knights and things like that. I mean, usually a knight's not supposed to be a villain, but like stuff happens in season one and you find out like there's another who's I mean, there are always villains who are stronger, but like it's rare for like a general good knight to be stronger than Garo. Like they could be if they fight and they fight hard enough, but on reputation alone, Garo's supposed to be the number one because
So
it's like one of the oldest one. But so the thing is, yes, ask your question, then I'll continue.
I was gonna ask, is Koga the strongest because he's strong, or is it because he has the strongest armor?
Um, I think it's because he's strong. Because the thing is, like, the armor gives you some boost. Like his armor is strong, but like knights never use the full power because you know how like Ultraman has like a timer system where it's like oh 3 minutes and then like the flashing starts or like 2 minutes and the flashing starts because that was kind of just like a filming limitation back in the day, but then they wrote it into lore. It's like Ultraman can only fight for 3 minutes,
Yeah, it was pretty
right?
cool.
Yeah, and in Garo, they have a rule of 99 seconds,
Is that
uh,
in
where
you go
where
on?
it's like they don't dehenshin. What happens is if they go over the 99 seconds, they kind of just their armor just reverts back to being demonic, so they just go berserk, and which kind of plays a little bit of, well, I mean, definitely plays a role. I think end of season one, where like Koga uses a tactic. It's kind of like basically you become a monster at that point. Like if nobody stops you, you're just a monster. And so that's like a thing where it's like, yeah, shit, we've got like you have to worry about your timer too. But the thing is like the Garo armor is strong, but like it's on par with some of the stronger armors. Like the number two armor is Silva or Ray. Well, Ray is the character, Zero is the person, then he has. But basically, like the secondary, like imagine if Garo was a writer and like he'd be the main, and like his secondary writer um shows up in season one, and he has the second strongest armor. But it's sort of a similar situation with him too, where it's like Ray, um, the previous knight who had silver, basically, or yeah, basically is classified second strongest, but he had a daughter, so like he couldn't pass it to her. But he adopted Ray, and like he passed it to Ray. But basically, his backstory is like what happens is the Horus find him and like try to take out the second strongest knight before he can pass it on, but he manages to pass it on anyway. But like the previous holder for silver and his daughter get killed in the attack.
Oh,
Yeah, but like he still inherits the thing. So he's like the second strongest. He's pretty damn tough. Like he's pretty much on par with Koga. Um, and then you have like different knights have like different abilities type of thing. It depends on what you can do. I guess Koga's is technically fire. It's kind of it's kind of weird because the thing is like Koga's son can use fire magic. And so the thing is like I think that's just what like the Gara armor can do, because like whenever he henshins he has like the fire stuff around him, but like Koga can't use that. But the other thing with Koga is like he was never fully trained sort of how to use, I mean like he got trained, but like his training was interrupted and stuff is because like one, his father never thought he was strong enough anyway, but his father died. He was the previous, like his father was kind of a dick.
but it
But he
became a
got,
situation of I have no choice. I have to pass this on to someone.
yeah, pretty much. And basically what happened is like it's basically like the Koga armor is in his like, okay, whenever you see like Makai Knights or like basically in like if this was Rider, Makai Knights are the riders, right? Um, so like Koga's henshin device is the sword, and so that's why whenever you see like a knight henshin, they have to draw a circle in the sky, or I mean, it doesn't have to be a sky. It's just a circle or like a certain formation with their weapon. It's because their armor is in the weapon. Um, and like you have to be able to draw it out. Like the armor has to choose you, sort of thing. And so what happened is like Koga's dad died, but his sword was there, like because uh like he got killed, but he like left the henshin device, and Koga had to like train years to earn it to be able to use it. And then like he went to train with like the Makai Academy and stuff like that. And there's like all this other shit that you find out in season two, but that he had to like go train under another knight, and he had to go to the academy to get training and things like that, and then he had to work years to fully get like the respect of the armor to be good enough to take the trial, and
He
then to get the respect of the armor to become Garo. So it takes
he
years.
he, he had to. He has to ask for a lot of help and prove himself and work his way up from the bottom.
Yeah, well, I mean, like it's the standard process that most knights go to. It's like you have to be worthy to use like it's sort of like Saint Seiya, where it's like you have the armor and the armor is pretty tough, but like it's at a certain rank as like all the other like in Saint Seiya. There's like you have like the Bronze Knight and the Silver Knights and the Gold Knights. So like if you're this rank, generally that rank is of the same power level, but depending on the user, it can be better or worse, right? And then the armor has to choose you. Garo is sort of a similar thing, where it's like, if you're like some of the like higher tier armors, then it's like, yeah, they're a little bit stronger. They might have some special abilities, right? Like in one of the movies, like you find out like one of the knights has the ability to basically like split in two. Um, like Silver's is like this weird like he kind of has like a speed up form type thing. Or is it like slow down? I think it's just he just moves faster, but he has like a time limit for it. And like Garo, I guess is fire. It's kind of hard to tell because like Koga, he's like the main knight you follow, so he just looks like a generic knight for most of it. But like his son has firepower, so I'm guessing it's fire powered. Um, but like Koga never actually uses that. But um, yeah. So the thing with this movie is like Koga goes to a different region because he's I guess like tracking a monster, and that region has no like Makai Knight. It has three Makai priests, but
What are the
he
priests?
so basically like the priests are the original demon hunters. Like they came
Oh.
first, and their job like they still exist in modern Garo, but right now they're more of a support role. But originally they were the first, which is what you kind of figure out in this movie. It's like yeah, they came out first. Their thing was sealing the horrors, but it's a lot more dangerous. It takes way more work. Plus, they don't have armor to protect them, so they're just humans with magic powers, right?
So they use outdated methods in the.
Well, it's not outdated. It's just they're like it's like okay, it's like imagine um Ichijo versus a monster versus G3 versus a monster. Like they're both effective. It's just Ichijo is gonna take way more of a hit if the monster gets in
Yeah,
close.
Ichijo will just get fucking wrecked if they get
Yeah,
too close.
right, and that's pretty much what the difference with the knights and the priests are. Like the priests have a lot more tools and things. Like one of the things that gets introduced is like they kind of have like magitech. Like they kind of have like their own like weird magic powered mechanical being type things, which is an introduction from this movie, but they keeps going on. So like they have like relics and things that they can use, but usually they're like spellcasters, or they can put up barriers and things like that. So they're like the defense class. They also like okay, Makai Knights just do fighting. Everything else basically a priest can do. Like the priest can fight too, but like if you need something like oh this item, if you need some like if you need to look up something, if you need a special herb, if you need like a barrier protection, or like if you need to exercise someone or something like that, you kind of need a priest for all that type of stuff. So they're really helpful, but like even when they're trained, because they don't have armors, they're not as good in combat. But the thing is, like, they're like if it was like an average knight and a decent priest, they'd be on even footing. But it's like it's the strongest knight in the in the Garo universe versus some pretty decent priests, and it's like yeah, of course, like Garo's gonna be way stronger than them, right?
he
Even then, like he gets his ass kicked in this movie, pretty hard, like halfway through. Um, but yeah, so the thing is, like the priests, they're like spellcasters and stuff, and so yeah, the interesting thing you learn in this movie is like, yeah, they can use like magitech stuff. They've always been able to use spells and things. They have like familiars. So each priest kind of has their own familiar. Like um, in season one, you had like Jabi and like well Jabi's mentor and Jabi, right? Because she was the next generation priestess. But she dies, so I guess they had to add Rekka in this movie.
Who's that?
Who she's the daughter of the Makai Knight who used to be in this region. So she has this like huge chip on her shoulder because she's like, "Fuck this! If I was just born a guy, I wouldn't have to deal with this crap. I
I
could have
I
just
could
been
I
raped."
could just be fighting right now.
Yeah, I mean, like she fights pretty hard, and that's one of the things is like she walks around and she basically has like a coat like a Makai Knight, except hers is black. I mean, like Zero or Ray or Silva, whatever, man. That guy has like three names. Like the secondary from like Garo season 1 and 2 walks around with like a black Makai coat anyway, which is fine. I guess like darker color ones are more normal. It's just Koga because he's from the Garo land. They usually wear the white coats, and then the coats have like minimal like magic resistance built in, but they're not like super resistive to magic. For that, you kind of need barriers and stuff, but like they can block a couple hits. Um, but yeah, so Rekka's in this movie, and she basically has this chip on her shoulder because like I should have been a knight. Like my dad would have been fucking alive, or at least I could have done something to avenge him if I was just born a guy. So she kind of has this huge chip on her shoulder. Um, and then her and there's another one. Shit, I don't remember if it's her brother or someone that she works with, who's another priest in training, and he uses like basically he's kind of got like a little like robot attack thing. It's kind of like a little robot dinosaur type thing. It's he can't fully control it, but like it's kind of his experiment. So he's more of the tinkerer type of um, priest, which there's a couple of those too. Because priests generally look into artifact, and they're under the supervision of this other priest, like the head priest of this area, right? And so those three are working cases here, but Koga comes here because he's following another horror, and that's another thing that kind of gets introduced in this, which is like arc horrors. So they're just like super strong horrors, right? And basically what happens is like this movie was supposed to be like it came out in like the 3D craze. I mean, like we're still kind of in it, but like at the height of it, sort of. So this movie kind of has like, oh look, a lot more CGI, and look, the monster is just coming right at the screen and all that type of stuff. So it's got
Uh,
like some CG 3D effects stuff, like some scenes just to highlight that, but like it doesn't really hinder the movie or whatnot. Um, but yeah, so the first arc fiend or arc horror that like Koga fights in this movie is that guy, and he's just you know like it's kind of weird. Like I don't want to describe the fights because there's a lot of them, and it's like, do you want to watch it or do you not? Like it's kind of just like, hey, do you want to watch some Tokusatsu sword fights? Cool, watch this, right? And it's like, yeah, it's mostly there just to introduce people to like how Koga operates, also for the 3D gimmick and stuff. But right, he fights a monster, and then you find out that there's another horror, like a really strong one, operating out of like a club, and basically it's trapped in a mirror. So like it absorbs people by like making you look in the mirror, saying you desire, and then it just like breaks you apart into shards. Like you know
oof.
how like fungi break apart,
Yeah.
sort of like that, and it just like consumes you.
I forget,
Uh,
why did Garo come to this island in the first place?
well, it's not an island; he's just in a different region.
Oh, sorry.
But
But why did he
yeah,
come
but
here?
basically he's just following a different horror to get here, and it's like, oh, so he beats that in like the first third of the movie, maybe not
So
even
he
third.
just kind of ends up here and is like, oh, I can keep doing work.
Yeah, and basically like I think he gets a mission or something where it's like, hey, there's another strong one operating. Oh, maybe he just runs into the priest or something, Oh no, no, no. I think Zarba probably sends it. I don't remember, man. It's been a while. But the point is, like, one reason or another, um, he figures out, like, he gets entangled with this mirror monster, and like the priests are obviously, trying to take it down because this thing killed um, Rekka's dad and whatnot, and it's a pretty strong monster. But what happens is like the mirror monster has like two helpers, and so they keep luring people in, um, and basically, so it's basically up to Koga and the priest to defeat this monster. It's pretty tough. There's some twists and turns. It's a mystery. Um,
Like,
the
wait, what's
two
the
priests
mystery?
kind of get
Like,
along with Koga
the mystery
because,
is who the horror is?
so, well, the mystery is like basically what the hell is the horror doing, and
Oh,
like
what's
why
the horror
why
doing?
has
Okay.
nobody been able to stop this thing, or why has nobody found it?
Actually, that
And so it's
sounds
like,
a lot really interesting.
yeah, I mean, it's not anything amazing. Like Garo plots are never like super interesting. I mean, there's occasionally some like really interesting stuff, but usually it's more like here's a plot, just go with it. Um, and so it's basically just like a standard movie setup where it's like, okay, here's the monster, go kill it, and it's like, and basically almost an hour and a half of that. Um, but like, yeah, and then you have the standard thing of like Rekka doesn't want to work with a Makai Knight because like it's like I should have been a Makai Knight. This is bullshit. Koga just wants to fucking do his job and get out of there. The other knights are kind of trying to help. Oh, I mean, the other priests are trying to help.
I
They're
was gonna
not
say
super
other
helpful.
knights. I thought Kogo was the only one.
Yeah, sorry, my bad. I mean, the other two priests are sort of trying to help. Um, and then as the movie goes on, like Koga and Rekka kind of get along. They figure out some stuff like, oh shit, there's like a barrier that's hiding the club, and that's why they couldn't sense what the fuck this horror was doing. And it's like, well, somebody must be doing something to help it or whatever. And then more stuff happens. They attack the club. They get their ass kicked super hard. So they have to retreat because they almost die. They go back, they bond, they come back, and they win. So like, yeah, it's pretty generic. That's why I don't want to give it play by play because like one, it's
Nothing
a lot of
happens.
fighting. It's a lot of fighting, and like there's a couple twists. It's not hard to figure out, but there's a couple, and I don't want to spoil it. But the point is, this is one of those movies where it's like you don't have to know anything about Garo because this movie will literally almost explain every single thing about Garo. Like it begins and like boom, you have Zarba, and Zarba basically gives like the manifesto type of thing of like this is what knights do. Like horrors exist, knights fight them, they'll fight them forever.
Go.
Movie starts, right? Oh, this is Koga. Koga, why are you here? Oh, I'm going to this reason because I'm following this monster. Monster is defeated. Oh shit, there's another thing going on. Oh, I guess I'll stick around. Runs into the priest. Priests are fighting this other monster. I mean, going after the same monster. They run into each other, right? They fight. They get along. Try to attack the base. Monsters win. Regroup. Come back. Figure out what the hell is really going on, and then attack the base again. It's pretty generic. I mean, well, not generic. It's pretty straightforward, but like it's hard to describe without spoiling it. Um, it's got a lot of action. Like it's not the most amazing thing ever. It's not the most amazing Garo action, but it's pretty solid. Like if I would compare it to like Rider or something, I'd say it's pretty decent. Like imagine, like it's a lot more out of suit fighting because that's one of the things in Garo is like they have suit fighting, but the knights had to be able to fight outside of suit too,
Right.
because
Because
they have a time limit.
they have like a minute and a half in suit.
Right, exactly. And so the thing is like, yeah, as long as they can avoid going into like their armored forms, they'll do that. Um, there's other things too, like you have the other world type stuff where it's like, yeah, like because the knights can enter the underworld because they have the armor and stuff. Um, Garo has a horse who only shows up in the underworld because you need transportation. It's a giant fucking world.
Yeah, the
Oh,
underworld
and
is
going.
pretty big. He has a horse that just lives in the underworld?
Well, he can just summon it because the thing is, the Makai Knights are like their power comes from the underworld too.
Oh, it does.
Right, and so that's why the suit goes crazy if you give it more than like 99 seconds, right? It just reverts back to being monstrous.
So it sounds like the suits were forged from demons originally.
Yeah, they're pretty much okay. Yeah, basically what they are um like at least the Garo armor is forged from like a great demon's fang, um, sort of thing. And there is a movie that's sort of about this. It's like much later, like it's like movie three or something. Um, and it's sort of kind of like almost like a conclusion to Koga's arc, sort of. It's like you can't really jump into that movie though because you kind of had to know a lot about Garo. Like this movie, you can jump into without knowing anything. Whereas, like the second movie, maybe right. Like you could probably follow the plot, but you'd be like, "Who the fuck are these characters?" Because like they're not gonna spend time explaining them because like, oh right, you already know these guys. Here's another. Like there's two knights you know. Here's a third one. He uses a spear. Um, right. And so the thing is like, yeah, the first movie you can jump into. Second movie need some context. Third movie, hell no. Like you would have to know what the fuck. So the funny thing is the second movie has Ray from Kiva or like 2008 Dark Kiva. Or like he was Kamen Rider Saga also.
Oh,
And he's
okay, that guy.
yeah, he's the third knight and he uses a spear to henshin. Basically Gara uses a sword, Silva uses like two swords, Ray uses like a spear.
So is
Um
Silver like your secondary antagonistic
yeah.
rider?
He kind of starts off that way because basically what happens is like he thinks Garo is the one that killed like his mentor.
Why would he
And
think that?
uh basically what happens is like Garo season 1, the antagonist in Garo season 1 looks pretty similar to Garo. It's kind of more of
Oh.
like it's just like a darker suit. So but he like only got like a glimpse of it and it's like, oh, that looks like Garo. So it's like, oh shit, what the fuck, why is the first knight killing the second? Like, well, maybe he's just trying to become the strongest by taking out all competitors because that's the thing. Like Ray doesn't know that much. Like he didn't at that point. He didn't know super a lot about the Makai Knight stuff because like basically the person his whose armor he got is like almost like his father-in-law kind of thing, where it's like he falls in love with this girl sort of thing and like kind of gets adopted type of thing. But it's more like they become like a close family and then like the person who had the armor passes it down to him, right? Because he couldn't pass it down to his daughter. So he doesn't know at that point like too much Makai Knight stuff. So it's like, but he does know it's like, oh, right, that's the strongest guy. And it's like, well, why is he killing? Is like, oh, is that how he got his rank? By like just murdering anybody who gets too strong? It's like, well, he doesn't know. So he's like suspicious of Koga and he attacks him. But like after a couple episodes, like he's still a little cold, but like he comes around. It's like, oh, you're not a bad guy. Like after a couple episodes, he sees that. Um, and the thing with Ray also is he's like a really different thing. Like his whole thing is like he's the knight who smiles, even though his backstory is like fuck everybody I love died. But that's the thing. Like Koga is super serious because like oh shit everybody I love died, right? Or at least monsters killed my dad, right? And the thing with Ray is he's supposed to be a contrast. Like yeah, I've lost people too, buddy. it's not an excuse to be a shithead all the time and be super serious. And so the thing is, like, like he's kind of set up to be like Faiz and Kaiza, but he's not. Like he comes off as like, oh, I want to take you down like an antagonist writer, but like he's pretty sensible. Like, oh, there's a greater threat. Let's fight that. Oh, you're not an asshole. Okay, let me see what you do, and I'll decide that. It's like, oh, I guess you're not. So he just like he's actually very reasonable, which is kind of interesting. He's also played by the person who, in Fies from Lucky Clover, the strongest one who could just disintegrate anything with his
Oh
hands.
yeah, you talked about him during the Fies podcast.
Right, right. It's
That's
played by
right.
that actor. Um, so that's kind of cool. But he's not in this movie. In the movie, you have like, um, basically like the main players are like you have the horror's two lackeys, like one guy, one woman, because at some point you're gonna have to fight Koga and Rekka, and so you have to split them up, right? But basically, you have those three, and then you have the three priests. You have the eldest one who's training Rekka and her partner, also in training, right? And then you have Koga. So you just basically have those seven players, and they're like the major players in this movie. Um, but basically, so let me basically set it up. So in the Garo world, you have like knights who fight horrors. They kind of have like they're from ancient times. Armors handed down. The armors are like reforged demon armor. So again, like they can't really do that because they've lost the ability to do that. They work for an organization called like the Watchdogs, or like they kind of listen to what the Watchdogs have to say, but they operate pretty autonomously. Um, they cooperate with the priests. Basically, the knights do the fighting, and the priests do basically the fighting and anything else that you need. Like the knights do investigative work and all that stuff too, but like priests can do that shit too. Um, Priests are older; they can use magic. Knights generally they're really good at physical combat, and they might have some abilities in their armor. But yeah, like outside of combat, they're not super useful. Like I mean, they have their jobs, they do their patrols, they investigate stuff, but yeah, like priests definitely have an important role. Um, they basically important things about like things that they carry for knights are like they have their cloaks, which are like sort of damage resistance, sort of magic resistance in human form. They have their like weapons that allows them to henshin. So Koga's is this red sword which belonged to his grandfather. I guess he must have been like a Garo 3 generations ago or 2 generations ago, I guess. Um, and so Koga uses his sword. Um, they also have like usually a Makai tool, um, which okay, so like the knights, they're just for the most part human people, so they can't really sense horrors. So they have Makai tools whose job it is to sense out horrors. And Koga's is this ring. It's called Zaruba. It talks, right? And so he basically uses that. Zaruba's a pretty decent character. Gets a lot of importance in the shows, in the movies. Um, right. Gonzo's important too. He's not in this movie though. Gonzo is basically like uh Koga's butler, but like it's more like he serves the like Saitama family with like Saitama and Koga, and so like basically he's like Alfred. Like if Koga's Batman, then like he would be Alfred. Like he's there, he's the supportive butler who's been there, raised him, type of stuff.
All right.
So he's pretty useful. He's not in this movie though. Um, So it's more like if you're watching like a movie or show, and it's like, who the fuck is this guy? It's like, yeah, he's pretty important to like the Koga, I mean not Koga, to the Garo franchise. It's just he's not in this movie. Um, but basically, yeah, the plot is Mirror Monster attacking people. Knights and priests have to defeat it, and shit happens during the way. There's revelations, blah blah blah. Frenemies to friends, along the way. For the priests and knights, you get a little bit of like
Oh
new
wait, there's some
information,
like conflict between Garo and the priests.
like normal, like Koga doesn't have a problem because like he's pretty much like, oh yeah, they're priests, we work together. Like he's pretty chill. Well, he's not chill, he's always kind of serious, but like he's okay with working with the priest. It's just Rekka doesn't like working with Makai Knights because like
Right,
she feels
because
like the system screwed her because like she wasn't born a guy, right? So like she kind of has this antagonistic thing, but like the other priests are totally okay with working with Koga, sorry.
Kuga.
Yeah, that trips me up so much. But
Doesn't help that you made that what's his name? I forgot already.
oh right,
N-
Gonzo.
the cop from Kuga.
Oh, Ichijo.
Ichijo, thank you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That
Um
didn't help. But
so so like overall it's a pretty solid movie.
like if you want an introduction to Garo, it's pretty good. Like it's sort of like, how like Wizard and Magic Land is like not exactly wizard, but like it's got enough of the wizard elements. So it's like, hey, if you like this movie, you might check out the show. Like this movie is a lot more faithful to Garo. Um, it like it does a well enough job introducing you. It's like, hey, here's Zaraba. He's gonna tell you the setup for the show. Here's Koga. He's the main character. Here's the Makai priest. Here's how knights operate. Here's how priests operate. Here's a horror. They come from the underworld. They attack people who uh, are corruptible, sort of type thing. Like here's a mission for where the knights and priests deal with them. Um, Hello, Drago.
Ultraman Z gets North American premiere simulcast June 19th.
Nice. That is cool, man. Um, so this is one of those other things where it's like Garo started doing it, and then Ultraman started doing it too. Where it's like they realized to actually become like a stable, growing brand, you have to reach outside of Japan. And Garo's been doing a lot of that, and then like Ultraman started doing that too. And it might just be because they finally got their rights back. But yeah, like Garo's been pushing media to the west, so like you can pretty much find most of Garo uh, out in the west. It's complicated, but basically like there's season one, season two,
Okay,
at,
so
le- at least three movies, and then there's like the future timelines, and then there's Garo's son. There's the miniseries, and then there's the anime. So there's a lot of
so
shit in
like
Garo.
if you were to put that into like a viewing order, what would that order be?
Uh, Fuck. You would have to ask Drago, but here, let me just look up. Uh, yeah, let me look up Garo and series. Oh,
Trek, are
one
you
more thing.
listening?
Garo's made by Keita Memiya. If anybody was wondering, so this is his franchise pretty much. He's done a ton of stuff, like specifically like he's done his own independent tokusatsu movies. Zara, we've covered that. He's done the '90s Kamen Rider movies.
Oh, this is the guy that did that like weird like alien thing movie.
Yeah, yeah. And like he's done Sentai and stuff. So like he's done a lot of stuff. Okay.
Drago, if you're listening to this, how would one watch Garo?
Yeah, I mean, oh, okay. Mm, yeah, basically, like you can watch season one. Beast of the Demon Knight is also connected to season one. Red Requiem is connected. Um, Kiba Gaiden is connected to season one. Makai Senki, that's season two, also connected to the main line. Demon Dragon. Oh,
Well,
right. Uh, so, so Kion. Okay, let me read this. Yeah, Sokoko no Mario, or basically Garo Demon Dragon of the Blue Cries. That's basically kind of an epilogue to me. Okay, thank you. That's what I was saying. Like, that's the third movie.
hey, Drago.
Hello.
Once he gets his mic going.
Yeah, yeah, that's fine. Um, right. The one who shines in the darkness, or Yamino Tezramono, is is a Garo thing, but it's not really connected to the first show like straight away. Um, so I'll give you a few or side story. Okay, yeah. So I guess that's one with Rekka, so that's connected. Zero Black Blood definitely connected. Maki no Hana is the one with Garo's son. That's connected. Zero Dragon Blood is another miniseries that's connected. So the thing is, like, you could pretty much watch most of Garo. Like, you could pretty much watch it in release order almost. Um, yeah, like the one who shines in the darkness, that comes later, so you could probably wait off on that one. Yeah.
Well, what I would say, just watch it in production order, except the anime.
Okay. Is the anime like prequel or?
Well, some of it is, but like the problem is that the anime doesn't, what do you call it? It has a lot of contradictions, and some of the stuff that happens in the anime couldn't possibly happen in the show
It kind of tells
and
its
stuff
own
like that.
story.
Yeah, it tells its own story, but the thing is, I think only one of the seasons of anime is a prequel because it takes place because a long way before Koga with one of his ancestors.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. It's like when the first Garo shows up, right?
Yeah,
Um, I mean, I guess that's like something you could look into once you've seen like Dragon Blood, because Dragon Blood kind of sets sort of like the ancient history stuff up. But like again, that's like a second mini series to the first show. So it's like, well, if you're going that deep, then you can get into the anime. But the point is, like, yeah, pretty much you can watch anything in production order. So like,
Except
just
the
sort of,
anime.
yeah, just don't watch the anime because like you wouldn't know what's real and what's not, right? What's canon and what's a little more iffy.
yeah. And also the fact is that some of the anime, personally, I don't know. Some people really like the anime, but I find the anime really bad.
And how much of Garo has been officially licensed in the West?
I
I
think all of the anime has been licensed in the West. I think everything up to Yamiyo Terasumono, I think, is licensed in the West.
Yeah. So like, there's a lot of Garo. Like, definitely season one I know is out. The Red Requiem I know is out. I'm not
If
sure
you
about
have
like the.
Bird, then you can watch all of it.
Oh, nice. Yeah, like I'm not sure about the Zero miniseries, but like, yeah, most of it's out. Also, like, the interesting thing about Garo is like a ton of fucking old writer and Sentai actors show up. Well, not old, but like uh, Heisei era actors show up in Garo. So like,
Yeah,
yeah, like basically it's got like definitely writer actors in there. And then you have a couple Sentai ones too. I know like Gokai Silver is there. Tokyo
Tokyo Yellow.
two, yeah, the yellow one. Um, definitely there. Freaking Decade shows up. um, oh man, do you
Uh,
know the story of the Decade thing?
oh my God, that was hilarious.
I
Right?
I do
Do
not
you
know
know
this
this?
story. What's
Oh
up?
my god. Okay, so,
Okay,
uh,
so
okay, Drago, you go.
Masahiro Inoue at the after of decade basically showed up to Garo's when Garo was being shot, like they were shooting some of the episodes, and
Okay.
he just showed up and said, "Oh, really? Is this the world of Garo?"
Right? And then he gets to meet Amemiya because, like, holy shit, it's Kedai Amemiya. Right? And it's like, oh, can I get an autograph? And it's like, yeah. And Amemiya is like, sure, give me something to sign. And he gives him a Decade card. So he just walks around like Decade.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, yeah, now we know where Decade was before Zio. He was just hanging around the world of Garo because he's actually in like two seasons, I think, of Garo. He's like one of the
uh,
villains, or at least one for
yeah,
sure.
he's in Goldstorm, Goldstorm the show, and he's in the movie Kami no Kiba, and he has his own show as well. So yeah, uh, basically Masahiro, he has been in Daro, I think, and Kirame Blue is also basically in the second season, or not second season, sorry. The Makai no Hana, the one with Koga-san, he's there as the secondary Makai Knight.
Oh, nice. I didn't get that far. Oh, actually, no. I guess I was there. Um, but Drago, your thoughts on this movie, Red Requiem?
Okay, when I first saw this movie, I think I about a few years ago. The thing is, I really some of the visuals and aesthetics was something I really liked, but like I thought the movie was okay, but after a rewatch, I really enjoyed the movie because now I know I got a better feel of the character of Rekka and Koga. Uh, so because of that, like the movie was quite enjoyable. Especially the one where in where the shot of Soga inside the what do you call it, the place where they party. I forgot what's that exactly
Yeah, the
called, but
nightclub.
yeah, the nightclub. Yeah, the nightclub. The shot over there was just incredible. The design of the horror and how and even the what do you call it, the entire aesthetics was still top notch, and because it had a budget, it could actually do some of the things that in season one it kind of it was yeah it was low budget, so in season one they couldn't do a lot of really good stuff. Here I think the design of horror, because the CGI could actually replicate that since time had passed. And and I really am thankful for this movie because this kind of saved the Garo franchise. Like, I mean, not saved, sorry, brought back the Garo franchise for a sequel, and because it actually showed that people are interested in this series.
Yeah, basically, like this movie was pretty much a test to see if we could make this into a franchise, and it's like, yeah, if this didn't succeed, like Garo is the fourth main tokusatsu show now. Like it goes like Rider, Sentai, Ultraman, and Garo for a reason, and that wouldn't have happened if this movie didn't succeed,
Yeah, Garo's
right? Like
definitely the one that I know the least about of those three.
yeah, basically like if I okay, here's the thing: this movie is 100% not for kids, right? Like it's this is a tokusatsu show that runs at midnight. It's got that showcase problem of like, oh shit, our channel's known for like being adult and nudity. Guess what? We're adding nudity, and so the thing is like, there's a lot of that in this movie. I mean, maybe not a lot, but there's a decent chunk. And in the shows, you see it like maybe on episode one for each season, or at least season one and two, because like, all right, just to let you know, not for fucking kids. All right,
But
boom,
like when you
done.
say nudity, like what?
Like naked people, also a decent amount of murder. Um, and like here's the thing, like Garo, it's weird. I mean, like basically watch the fucking intro for this or anything with the freaking horror. It's like here's the thing, right? Like Amazon's is over the top in being violent, but it doesn't have nudity. Garo is not as over the top, but it has nudity.
but like
So the
what I'm
thing is
saying is
like
like how far do they go with the nudity?
um like I don't think I've
Uh,
ever seen like
they
a
usually
bottom
talk in the back.
shot. Yeah, I don't think
Talk in
I've
the back.
seen.
That's it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm like I don't think I've ever seen like a bottom nudity, but like everything chest and up, like free game.
So like nothing too bad, but still like not a good appropriate for children.
Dude, this is the one show, right? Like Amazon's is like okay, you have to go looking for Amazon, but like this you could find on TV. It's like yeah, this is not for kids. Um, but basically like if I would have to give it like a rating, like oh shit, like how should I explain it? Like imagine God of War, right? Like that kind of thing where it's like, all right, violence and nudity. Not a lot of nudity, but it's there.
But more than zero.
Well, like more than like Toei would not go anywhere near movie, pretty much, right?
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
so that's the thing. It's like it's different. It's not like special effects don't magically save you, right? Like it's not the Toei formula. That's the thing. That's the one thing about Garo. Like Ultraman started to become a little Toei esque, a little bit. But like Garo is the one franchise which does like, no, fuck you. We're not doing the Toei thing, right? Because like yeah, your special effects they're there, but it won't save you. Like you actually have to win the fight. Right? And it's like, yeah, this is not for kids, especially the movies. And it's like, yeah, we're not gonna fucking back down when there's like bad shit going down or where there should be nudity. It's just there. Deal with it. You're a fucking adult now. Figure it out. Um,
Drago,
Mm,
what do you think of this movie though?
Uh, I really like it now, like compared to previously, because when I was just newly watching Garo, uh, it's good. I really enjoy it. Like I feel like I think some of my friends who are like trans men, they really related. Uh, they really related to Rekka a lot. So and they were kind of projecting onto her, which was kind of neat, with what I thought. And then uh, other than that, yeah, movie has incredible shooting. The CGI is
yeah, I
that's
mean,
about it.
I would have to agree. Like honestly, the one I mean, like this movie does a lot of decent stuff because it adds stuff to the lore and stuff. But honestly, the number one cool thing it did was add Rekka to the franchise. Because at this point, Jabi is dead, so it's like, well, shit, we need another cool female character, and Rekka is like really fucking solid. Um, Also, her thing is like fish, like fish from because she gives Garo like a little like CGI fish familiar thing to guard him, which kind of comes into play a little bit later, definitely in the third movie. But it's like a thing going forward now. So um, yeah, the other thing with Garo is like if shit happens in the movie, it actually happens. Like if they get like, oh, this is between season 1 and 2, guess what? If they're gonna reference stuff, or maybe not reference, but it's like, oh, if this character shows up again, it's like, oh yeah, I know you, or I got this thing from there, or they won't really explain. Like the fish thing never really gets explained if you haven't seen the movie. But it's just
And
kind of good.
like some of the elements of the movie just get carried over to the show, and they just don't talk about it because they assume you have seen the movie.
Oh,
It's not important, but it really builds a foundation to the world.
it's a lot of world building.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
this movie fully puts. Well, I guess like the show kind of put down that Makai Knights have reasons, but like the you can only be a guy if you want to be a Makai Knight, or priests can kind of have like gadgets and things that they use, or um, there's like lots of stuff. This builds up. Um,
Okay. Here's the funny thing. It's that
yeah,
the reason why the only reason why you have to be a guy, or like some people who are like non-binary, they have also have Makai Knight, like,
oh
but
really?
like, yeah, it's official. So
Oh cool.
like some, if you have to be a guy or non-binary, it's because nobody made Makai armor for women. That's the only reason why.
I know it's such a bullshit reason too, but
Yeah.
like, I mean, like at least they wrote it into lore why it had to be
So
that way. Unlike Writer, where it's like, oh no, for the longest time we just don't want to.
so nothing about testosterone
No,
or
no,
about
it's just
like
they
what
can't make me
what a
armor.
woman's place is with raising children. They're like, nah, they just didn't design that kind of armor.
Well, to be fair,
Yeah.
like the whole reason they never designed that type of armor is because of that shit. But like now in the modern world, it's like yeah,
Nowadays they
we
don't know how to make any more armor.
yeah, exactly. So it's like even if we wanted to, we can't do it, which like
No,
pisses
making armor
so
is a really huge pain. In season three, we get like why the armor, the metal that makes the armor is very hard to get.
yeah. Um, I mean, it's made from the like third movie. You
For
figure out it's like the fang of the demon, right? Like the whole there's like the Gar world's interesting because like you think, oh, it's just dudes with swords running around in long coats, right? It's like yeah, it's very Highlander esque. But the thing is like soul metal is the what the blades of Makai Knights are made of. Like it works on intention, so like if a regular person tries to lift it, it won't move. Like it's so heavy. So like you actually have to train to be able to control it, to be able to move it like it's light as a feather. So like forget being a Makai Knight, like you can't even fucking henshin, or like you can't even use their damn swords uh without without either fucking being a dude uh or knowing how to fucking do the special, like you have to have this mentality just to use, like there's a lot of interesting rules um in like Garo. Like it's a really interesting world. uh it's it's kind of sexist, but like the lore explains it, but yeah, it's kind of bullshit. So right, like
so
shoot away with your
Honestly, I
questions
feel
because
that
so
sorry.
okay. I was gonna say honestly, I feel like Garo World isn't as sexist as Kamen Rider or Sentai after season one. Not Sentai, sorry, Kamen Rider after season one is because the characters like Jabi, Rekka, and I forgot her name from season three. Shit.
Shit, I don't know.
Jabi,
Oh, are you talking about like from Makino Hana?
no, not Makaina Hana. The one from Yami Sumono and Gold Storm.
Oh, okay, okay, okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. The one who shines in the darkness. There's a lot better characters in that for sure.
Yeah, so we have seen a lot of Makai priestess, like, and even in Zero Dragon Blood, no, not Dragon Blood, sorry, Black Blood. That the characters are not. It's not the. There are many strong female characters without it being sexist. It's just that they just don't get the armor for some reason, and I think it's probably fan service.
Yeah. Well, so that's one of the other weird things is like the whole Makai priest aesthetic is based on basically Jabi. And the thing is like the whole reason Jabi's fighting style is those weird like long kicks and spins and all that shit is because one, they didn't have a lot of time to train these people because weekly show, right? Two, they don't have much of a budget. Three, Jabi's an actual dancer. So the way they incorporated that is like, well, we don't have to train you that much if we use your already known skill set, right? And that's why like the Makai priest fighting style, or at least the priestesses, is all those like spins and kicks and all that shit. Is because it's based on Jabi's one, and Jabi's one is like that. It's because they didn't really have time to fully train her into a more different style, so they kind of had to incorporate what she had, and the thing she had was dancing. So like it's a lot of different steps to get to why things are like that behind the scenes. But it's like, well, yeah, it's weird. Like the world is kind of hierarchical, and the Makai priest kind of gets shafted a lot of time. But like the lore explains why it is. It's definitely frustrating, and like everybody kind of in the world even kind of acknowledges that this is kind of bullshit. But it's like it's the best they got right now. It's kind of annoying. Like the Makai priests are interesting because there's always something going on with them where it's like, hey, how come I can't be a knight because I'm a woman? That's bullshit. And like some of the other ones, like, why do I have to be a fucking knight when I actually want to just be a priest? Like why do I have to inherit this dumbass armor and do all this shit, right? So like the priests have so much shit going on because they're so much more versatile as characters. Whereas the knights are like, you can be good or you can be bad. You can be good at fighting or you can suck at fighting. And it's like they're so combat focused that their stories are a little limited.
So Garo is a show that I haven't sat down to watch. But like it's something that like when I first heard, I was like, yeah, I should watch that at some point. That sounds interesting. And now that I know more about it, it's like, yeah, there seems to be like a lot of cool concepts and ideas in here. I do want to sit down and watch this at one point.
Yeah, and
I
if
just don't
like
know if I have the time.
right, I was gonna say watch this movie to see if you're because the thing is like it sounds interesting, but like it's sort of like Wizard. Like watch Magic Land to see if you're interested in this style. Because like the ideas always seem more interesting, whereas like it's the same thing with Garo. It's like watch this movie. If you like this movie, you like Garo. If like something of this aesthetic or like this like type of thing is a lot more mature than like Toei shows, like if that rubs you the wrong way, like don't. Because I know a lot of people who weren't really into Amazon because they're like, I don't like this tone. And so Gar's sort of like that. Watch this movie to decide. Also for the horse, yeah, the horse is just an underworld thing. I mean, it does show up in the real world every once in a while, very
But like he just has
temporarily.
an underworld horse.
Well, you have to gain it. Basically, you have to like kill 100 horrors to be able to have access to it, to be like worthy enough for it to come. So like if you have a horse in the underworld, that means you've killed at least 100 horrors, which means you've survived 100 hunts at least, which means you're pretty damn tough Makai Knight. Because like most Makai Knights like don't make it to that, or most don't even fight that many horrors.
All right. anything else? No? Guess we can call it here.
Yeah, sure. Okay, what I was gonna say is you should probably check out Gara versus Road. It is the least tokusatsu going on right now. Because it's all about a battle royale and martial arts and fighting rather than any armors and other stuff.
Hmm, that's interesting. Um, yeah, so that's one of the other things about Garo is it's a lot more out of suit focused, um, which is interesting. Like that's even in the movie, you're gonna see most of the fights are out of suit. So that's the other thing. It's like if you're not into that, I mean, I don't know why you wouldn't be, because that's the thing. Like Garo's not as flashy. Like there's like the suits flashy, and like whenever they're doing their special finishers and stuff, it's pretty flashy. But for the most part, it's not like Rider, right? Where it's like, oh, you have like a different finisher or different power up or any of that shit. It's like, no, you get like one suit. That's it. There are no form changes. There are no power ups. This is all you got. You just roll with this.
And sometimes that's all you need.
Yeah, I mean it's very classic tokusatsu. Um, where it's like one hero, one monster fight. You know, and that's pretty much like the premise of Gara. And it's like that's one of the nice things. Like after a while, like watching Toei stuff, which gets like way the fuck too heavy with gimmicks. It's kind of nice to go back to Gara and be like, oh right, this old school formula still holds up today if you do it well. Yeah, but that's pretty much all I got to say about this. It's good. If you want to get into Garo, and you got like an hour and a half, this is a decent movie to get into. It'll pretty much introduce you to most things. Like maybe it won't tell you everything. Maybe not 100% of the shit will be clear, but like 90% of Garo you can get from watching this, or at least 90% of the first season or so. Like there's a couple other things in history and all that stuff, which you watch the other stuff for. But like, if you want to know if you're interested in Garo, watch this. You'll know.
All right. Thanks for joining us tonight, everybody. Um, we'll be back next week with something, and we'll see you next time.
Bye bye.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, everyone. Sorry about being a little rambly and not giving you full details. Like I haven't watched this movie in a while, but most of this movie is a fight. They're pretty decent fights. There's a couple twists, and the other stuff is just exposition if you've never seen Garo. But it's actually done pretty well. As for next week, I don't know. Hopefully, Superhero Time's back, then we can do that. If not, we'll see. I mean, we already covered Ultraman and Garo. Maybe we'll look into another Tokusatsu franchise. But yeah, thanks